Have you ever wondered why some people seem to love you most when you are useful to them? When you can help, they are close. When you can give, they remember you. When you solve their problems, they call you important. But the moment you say no, become tired, need support yourself, or have nothing left to offer, their warmth begins to disappear. That is a painful realization, because sometimes you were not loved for who you are. You were loved for what you provided. But listen carefully, my beloved brothers and sisters. This reminder is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about learning the difference between sincere love and conditional attachment. And the seventh sign may reveal the truth more clearly than all the others. Who still values you when your hands are empty? 1. They remember you most when they need something. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes the first sign is not hidden at all. You have simply been too kind to admit what you are seeing. For weeks, perhaps months, this person hardly checks on you. They do not ask how your heart is doing. They do not ask whether you are tired, struggling, worried, or carrying something silently. Then suddenly your phone rings. And before they even explain, you already know. They need something. Maybe money, maybe a favor, maybe your car, maybe your contacts, maybe somebody to solve a problem they created. Maybe they need you to speak to someone on their behalf. And the moment they need you, suddenly you become the best person, the only one they trust, the one who always understands. Then you help. The problem is solved, and strangely their warmth disappears with the problem. This is where you must stop and ask yourself a difficult question. Do they miss me? Or do they miss what I can do for them? Allah says, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Goodness should awaken goodness. A healthy relationship does not need to be perfectly equal every single day. Sometimes one person will be going through difficulty and will need more support. Sometimes you will give more because Allah has given you more strength in that season. Islam encourages us to help, to be generous, to relieve hardship, and to stand beside those who are struggling. So do not become suspicious simply because somebody needed you. Look at the pattern. That is the important part. Do they ever remember you when nothing is wrong? Do they call simply because they wanted to hear your voice? Do they ask how you are after you have spent hours helping them? Do they remember what you are going through? Or does every conversation eventually arrive at the same sentence, actually, I wanted to ask you something? Some people know exactly how soft your heart is. They know you struggle to say no. They know you feel guilty when somebody sounds desperate. They know you will sacrifice your own comfort because seeing another person disappointed hurts you. And perhaps you have been telling yourself, this is just who I am. I like helping people. That is beautiful. Do not lose that quality. But there is a difference between being generous and becoming someone's permanent solution to problems they refuse to take responsibility for. Perhaps every month the same person comes to you short of money. You help them, but they never ask how you are managing financially. Perhaps every time they fight with someone, they call you for hours. You listen, but when you are struggling, they suddenly have no time. Perhaps they disappear whenever life is going well for them, but the moment their world falls apart, they remember that you exist. And because you care, every time they return, you open the door again without asking what the relationship has become. Listen carefully. Being needed can feel like being loved, but they are not the same thing. A person can need your money without knowing your heart. They can need your advice without valuing your presence. They can need your connections without caring about your struggles. They can need your forgiveness because it allows them to repeat the same behavior without losing access to you. That realization can hurt, but sometimes truth hurts for a moment so that it can protect you for years. And please do not respond by becoming cold. Do not say, nobody cares about me, so I will never help anyone again. That is not the lesson. The lesson is to stop measuring sincere love by how urgently someone needs you. Watch what happens when they need nothing. When there is no money involved, no crisis, no favor, no problem to solve. Is there still a relationship? That tells you something. There are people who will sit with you even when you cannot do anything for them. They will check on you because they care. They will laugh with you without needing a favor at the end of the conversation. They will remember you during their good days, not only during their disasters. And when you are the one who becomes weak, they do not suddenly disappear, because the useful version of you is temporarily unavailable. Those people are precious, but sometimes we lose them because we are too busy chasing the people who only come when they need something. Think about that. You may be giving enormous energy to someone who remembers you only in emergencies, while ignoring a sincere person who quietly checks on you without asking for anything. Learn to recognize the difference. And there is something else you need to understand. You do not have to prove your goodness by solving every problem people bring to you. Sometimes the healthiest response is not yes. Sometimes it is, I cannot do that, but perhaps I can help you think of another solution. Watch their reaction. A sincere person may be disappointed, but they will still respect you. A person who values only what you provide may suddenly become cold, distant, or irritated. That reaction can reveal what constant giving was hiding. You may discover that their affection was strongest when your usefulness was highest. Do not hate them for it. Simply become wiser. You are not responsible for forcing someone to love you sincerely. You are responsible for keeping your own heart clean, your intentions sincere, and your boundaries healthy. Help people for the sake of Allah, not because you are afraid they will leave if you stop. That changes everything. When you give for Allah, gratitude from people becomes beautiful, but you do not depend upon it. When you give because you are desperate to be loved, every request becomes dangerous, because saying no begins to feel like risking the relationship. And perhaps that is why you are exhausted. You have been paying for people's affection with your time, your energy, your money, your peace, and your constant availability. You do not need to do that. The people who genuinely value you will appreciate what you give, but they will not reduce you to what you can give. So remain generous, remain compassionate, help when you can, but begin paying attention to who remembers you when they need nothing. Because sometimes the clearest sign that somebody values your heart is that they still come close when your hands are empty. 2. Their warmth changes the moment you say no. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes you will never know what a person truly values about you until the day you can no longer give them what they want. As long as you were saying yes, everything seemed beautiful. They called you caring. They praised your heart. They told people how generous you were. Whenever they needed something, you found a way. Even when you were tired, you showed up. Even when it was inconvenient, you adjusted your life. Perhaps you convinced yourself, this is what love requires. Then one day, you said no. Not because you hated them, not because you wanted to punish them. Perhaps you genuinely could not afford it. Perhaps you were exhausted. Perhaps you had responsibilities of your own. Perhaps what they were asking had become unhealthy. You simply said, I am sorry, I cannot do this. And suddenly the person who loved your kindness became angry at your boundary. Their messages became colder. Their calls became fewer. Their tone changed. Maybe they stopped speaking to you for a few days so that you would feel guilty. Maybe they said, you have changed. Maybe they reminded you of everything they had ever done for you. And now you are sitting there wondering, did I do something wrong? Listen carefully. Sometimes your first sincere no reveals what 100 generous yeses were hiding. Allah says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. You were never required to destroy yourself in order to keep another human being satisfied. There is a difference between sacrifice and being continuously drained. There is a difference between generosity and being manipulated by guilt. There is a difference between somebody appreciating your kindness and somebody believing they are entitled to it. A sincere person may be disappointed when you cannot help. That is normal. But disappointment and punishment are not the same thing. Someone who values you can hear no and still respect you. They may say, I understand. They may find another solution. They may even ask, are you okay? You normally help. Is something happening with you? Do you see the difference? The person who cares about you notices why you cannot give. The person who cares mainly about what you give becomes focused only on the fact that they did not receive it. That is where you need wisdom. Perhaps you have become so afraid of people's reactions that you say yes before even thinking. Someone asks for money and you immediately agree, although you are struggling yourself. Someone asks for your time and you cancel something important. Someone calls with the same problem for the 20th time And although you are emotionally exhausted, you remain on the phone because you are afraid they will call you uncaring. Eventually, you are not helping because you want to help. You are helping because you are afraid of what will happen if you stop. That is a very different relationship. When fear of someone's reaction controls your generosity, something needs to change. And sometimes the person does not shout at you. Their manipulation is quieter. They become silent. They withdraw affection. They stop replying. They make you chase them. And because you cannot tolerate the distance, you eventually return and say, okay, fine, I will do it. Then suddenly everything becomes warm again. Pay attention to that pattern. If affection disappears whenever you establish a reasonable boundary and returns immediately when you surrender it, ask yourself what is actually being loved, you or your compliance. This does not mean you should test people deliberately. Do not play games. Do not intentionally refuse someone just to see whether they become angry. That itself can damage relationships. Simply live honestly. When you can help, help sincerely. When you cannot, say so respectfully. And when a boundary is necessary, establish it without cruelty. Then allow people's natural reactions to teach you something. You may say, but if I start saying no, they may leave. Perhaps that fear is exactly why you have been saying yes for so long. You are not only giving money, you are paying for closeness. You are not only giving time, you are purchasing peace. You are not only doing favors, you are trying to guarantee that somebody will remain pleased with you. But relationships built on constant fear of disappointing someone are exhausting. You cannot live your entire life managing everyone's emotions. There will be moments when somebody you love is unhappy with your decision. That does not automatically mean your decision is wrong. And there is another important point. Do not become arrogant once you recognize this pattern. Do not say, they were using me all along, when you do not know what is inside another person's heart. We judge behavior and patterns. Allah knows hearts. Perhaps they became accustomed to your help and developed unhealthy expectations without realizing it. Perhaps a respectful conversation will correct the relationship. So speak. Say, I care about you, but I cannot always be available. Say, I want to help where I can, but I also have responsibilities. Say, please do not interpret every no as a lack of love. A healthy person may reflect. They may apologize, they may change, give people room to grow. But if every boundary produces anger, guilt, punishment and withdrawal, then stop ignoring what the pattern is teaching you. You do not need to become cruel, you need to become consistent. If you say no today and surrender tomorrow because they became angry, you teach them that your boundary can be removed with enough pressure. So be gentle but mean what you say. And perhaps this is something you need to hear today. You are allowed to disappoint someone without disrespecting them. You are allowed to be unavailable sometimes. You are allowed to protect responsibilities Allah has already placed upon you. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say, I cannot afford that. You are allowed to say, I cannot solve this for you again. None of this requires hatred. Sometimes the strongest boundary is spoken with the softest voice. And once you learn this, something beautiful happens. Your giving becomes sincere again. You help because you want goodness for the person, not because you are terrified of losing them. You say yes when yes is appropriate. You say no when no is necessary, and you stop measuring the strength of a relationship by how much of yourself you can sacrifice to keep it alive. Remember this near the end, my beloved brothers and sisters. Someone who genuinely values you may love your generosity, but they will also respect your limitations. They will not require you to remain exhausted so that they can remain comfortable. So pay attention to what happens when you cannot give someone what they want. Sometimes the word no does not destroy a relationship. Sometimes it simply reveals what the relationship was built upon. Lesson 3. They know what you can give, but rarely ask what you need. My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the most painful signs is when somebody seems to know everything about your usefulness, but almost nothing about your heart. They know when your salary comes. They know you have a car. They know you have contacts. They know you are the responsible one. They know you usually answer quickly. They know you cannot easily ignore someone who sounds desperate. They know exactly what you can do for them. But ask yourself something honestly. Do they know what you are carrying? Do they know what worries you at night? Do they notice when your voice becomes quieter? Do they ever ask, are you okay? And actually wait for the real answer? Sometimes the person everybody depends on becomes the person nobody checks on. And because you are strong, people assume you do not need anything. Because you smile, they assume everything is fine. Because you are the one solving problems, they forget that you also have problems. And perhaps you helped create that image yourself. Every time someone asks, how are you? You say, I am fine. Even when you are not. You do not want to burden anyone. You do not want to appear weak. You have trained everyone to believe that you are always available, always capable, always okay. Then one day you become exhausted and wonder why nobody noticed. This is where wisdom requires honesty from both sides. Do not expect people to read your mind. Sometimes you need to tell the people you trust, I am struggling too. Then watch carefully. A sincere person will make space. They may not have the perfect answer. They may not be able to solve anything, but they will listen. They will ask again. They will remember. They will care about the person behind the help. But there are other people who cannot stay focused on your pain for even 5 minutes. You tell them, I am exhausted. They say, I understand. By the way, can you do something for me tomorrow? You tell them, I am having financial difficulty. They still ask for money. You tell them, I need some space. They become offended because your space reduces their access to you. That is when you begin seeing the difference between somebody who values you and somebody who values what you provide. And there is a spiritual lesson here as well. Allah says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Cooperate with one another in goodness and righteousness. Notice the spirit of that command, cooperation. Not one person constantly pouring while everyone else only receives. Healthy relationships have mutual concern. That does not mean everything must be perfectly equal every day. Sometimes one person will carry more because the other is weak. Sometimes you will give far more in one season and receive far more in another. But over time, there should be some sign that the other person sees you as a human being, not just a resource. Do they care when you are tired? Do they remember your responsibilities? Do they respect your limits? Do they ever offer help before you ask? Do they notice when you have become quiet? These small things matter. Sometimes the strongest evidence of sincere care is not a grand gift. It is someone remembering that you had an important appointment. Someone messaging, how did it go? Someone saying, you helped me so much last week, how are you doing now? Someone noticing that you have been giving too much and telling you, rest, I will handle this one. That is affection with awareness. And perhaps this lesson hurts because you realize that you have spent years being useful to someone without ever feeling truly known by them. You know everything about their life, their fears, their goals, their family problems, their financial struggles, their heartbreak. But they barely know anything about yours. Why? Because every conversation has been built around them. You ask questions, they answer. You advise, they receive. You encourage, they feel better. Then the conversation ends, and somehow there is never enough room for your heart. That is not necessarily because they are evil. Some people have simply become accustomed to receiving. Some are emotionally immature. Some are so consumed by their own pain that they do not notice yours. So do not rush to hate them, but do not ignore the pattern either. A relationship can be unhealthy even when the person is not intentionally malicious. Sometimes the solution is a conversation. You may need to say, I care about you, but I also need this relationship to have space for both of us. That can feel uncomfortable if you are used to always being the strong one. But sincerity requires truth, and perhaps the person will surprise you. They may say, I did not realize, I am sorry. Then the relationship becomes healthier. That is beautiful. But if every time you express a need, they make you feel guilty for having one, then that is something you need to notice. You are not selfish because you have needs. You are not weak because you need support. You are not less valuable because for once you cannot be the strong person in the room. Sometimes you need someone to listen. Sometimes you need advice. Sometimes you need someone to say, I am here. And if a person only appears when you are strong enough to serve them, but disappears when you become weak enough to need them, that tells you something about what the relationship has been built upon. My beloved brothers and sisters, please remember this near the end. Do not spend your whole life trying to earn love by becoming indispensable. Because if somebody only loves the version of you that never needs anything, then eventually you will become afraid to be human around them. You will hide your tiredness, hide your sadness, hide your financial difficulty, hide your fear. You will keep performing strength because you think weakness will make them leave. That is exhausting. The right people do not only love your strength, they can also sit beside your weakness without making you ashamed of it. They do not only know what is in your hands, they care about what is in your heart. So keep helping people, keep being generous, keep being the person who shows up when you can. But pay attention to who also shows up for you. Because sometimes the clearest sign that somebody values you for who you are is not how much they praise what you give. It is whether they still make room for you when you are the one who needs something. 4, they become uncomfortable when you start protecting yourself. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes you do not discover who benefited from your lack of boundaries until you finally create one. For years, you were always available. If they called, you answered. If they needed money, you tried to find it. If they created a problem, you helped solve it. If they spoke harshly, you forgave quickly. If they arrived at the wrong time, you adjusted your plans. You became so accustomed to putting yourself last that eventually everyone around you became accustomed to it as well. Then one day something changes. You become tired. You begin realizing that you cannot continue living like this. So you start protecting your time. You become more careful with your money. You stop entering every argument. You stop answering every late night call when the same person refuses to change anything. You stop allowing people to speak disrespectfully to you simply because you love them. And suddenly someone says, you have changed. Perhaps you have. But change is not always something to apologize for. Sometimes you have simply learned that having a good heart does not require having no boundaries. Allah says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Do not forget your share of this world. There is balance in our religion. Your family has rights. Your body has rights. Your responsibilities matter. Your time matters. Your worship matters. And constantly exhausting yourself to satisfy every demand is not the only definition of kindness. Some people were comfortable with the old version of you because the old version never challenged them. You always said yes. You always forgave without discussing what happened. You always lent the money. You always became the mediator. You always accepted the apology even when nothing changed afterward. You always rearranged your life. So the moment you say, I cannot continue doing this, they do not only notice your boundary, they notice that their access to you has changed. And that can make certain people very uncomfortable. Perhaps someone used to call you every night with the same problem. You listened for hours, advised them, comforted them, and the next day they deliberately returned to exactly the same situation. Then one evening you say, I care about you, but we have spoken about this many times. I cannot keep having the same conversation while nothing changes. Suddenly they accuse you of becoming heartless. But are you heartless? Or have you finally realized that constantly absorbing somebody's chaos is not the same thing as helping them? Perhaps a relative repeatedly borrows money every time you give. Then you begin struggling with your own expenses. So you say, I cannot lend money this time. They become angry. They remind you of your income. They question what you spend your own money on. They make you feel guilty for providing for your own household. At that moment, understand something important. Your generosity does not give another person ownership over what Allah has entrusted to you. You can be generous and still responsible. You can help others and still protect the rights of those who depend upon you. Perhaps the issue is not money at all. Perhaps it is respect. Somebody has become comfortable speaking to you in a way they would never speak to anyone else. They raise their voice. They insult you. Then afterward they say, you know how I am. And because you want peace, you keep accepting it. But one day you calmly say, I care about you, but I will not continue this conversation while you speak to me like this. Now they become offended by your boundary instead of reflecting on their behavior. This is where many gentle people become confused. You think, maybe I should have remained silent. No, there is a way to protect dignity without becoming arrogant. A boundary does not need shouting. It does not need insults. It does not need revenge. Sometimes it is simply a calm sentence followed by consistent action. If you continue shouting, I will end the conversation and we can speak when we are calm. I cannot lend money again. I cannot keep lying to protect this situation. I am not discussing that person behind their back. I cannot be available tonight. Simple, clear, respectful. And then comes the difficult part. Do not spend the next 30 minutes apologizing for having the boundary. Some people say no and then immediately become frightened. No, I can't, but please don't misunderstand me. I really care. Maybe I can rearrange everything. Okay, perhaps I can do it. That is not a boundary. That is a negotiation with your guilt. If your decision is reasonable, communicate it with kindness and allow the other person to have their feelings. They may be disappointed. They may need time to adjust. Not every negative reaction means someone is manipulating you. This is important. Sometimes good people become accustomed to a certain pattern too. When you change that pattern, they may initially feel hurt or confused. Give them time. Explain yourself where explanation is appropriate. But then watch what happens. A person who genuinely values you will eventually begin respecting the healthier version of you. They may say, I did not realize how much pressure I was putting on you. They may apologize. They may begin solving more of their own problems. They may start asking before assuming you are available. That is growth. But a person who mainly valued your usefulness may continue fighting every boundary because every boundary reduces what they can take from you. That is where the pattern becomes revealing. And perhaps the most painful manipulation is guilt. You used to help me. Yes, and I helped because I could. You never said no before. Yes, but I have realized I cannot continue in the same way. You think you are better than us now? No. I am simply trying to handle my responsibilities differently. You do not need to become angry. Sometimes calmness is stronger because the person may be expecting your guilt to make you surrender. When you remain respectful but firm, they realize something has changed. And let us be honest with ourselves as well. Sometimes we blame others for crossing boundaries that we never communicated. You silently become angry because someone keeps asking you for favors, but every time they ask, you smile and say yes. How are they supposed to know you are overwhelmed? Communicate. Do not expect people to understand boundaries that exist only inside your mind. Speak before resentment grows. Say, I can help this time, but I cannot make this a regular arrangement. Say, I need more notice next time. Say, I want to support you, but this is becoming too much for me. This is healthier than saying yes for 6 months and then exploding on the 7th. Islam teaches us good character, and good character includes the way we communicate difficult truths. You can establish a boundary without humiliating someone, and there is something deeper happening here. Perhaps your entire identity has become connected to being the person everybody depends upon. When someone does not need you, you feel unimportant. When someone solves their problem without you, strangely, you feel left out. So you keep giving not only because people ask, but because being needed makes you feel valuable. Be careful. Your value does not come from being everybody's rescuer. If you believe your worth depends upon how much people need you, you will find it almost impossible to establish boundaries because every no will feel like you are making yourself less valuable. But you are more than what you provide. You are a servant of Allah before you are anyone's problem solver. Your worth is not measured by how many emergencies you fix. Your life also has responsibilities that deserve attention. Your salah deserves attention. Your family deserves attention. Your own character deserves attention. Your physical and emotional strength require care. If everybody receives your energy except the responsibilities Allah has actually entrusted directly to you, then something has become unbalanced. And sometimes people will say, but Islam teaches us to sacrifice for others. Yes, sacrifice is beautiful, but sincere sacrifice is different from living under manipulation. When you sacrifice, you choose goodness, seeking Allah's pleasure. When you are manipulated, you act primarily because you fear another person's anger, guilt, rejection, or withdrawal. Look at your heart. Why are you saying yes? Because it is genuinely good, or because you are terrified of what they will do if you say no? That question can reveal a great deal. And remember, boundaries are not walls against everyone. They are doors with wisdom. A wall says nobody comes close. A healthy boundary says, you may come close, but not in a way that destroys either of us. That is a major difference. Do not allow painful experiences to turn you into someone who refuses everybody. You still need people. People still need you. Community, family, generosity, and friendship are blessings. The goal is not isolation. The goal is healthier connection. Perhaps somebody has taken advantage of you before. Do not punish every future person for what one person did. Learn, become wiser, but keep your heart soft. And my beloved brothers and sisters, remember this near the end. The people who sincerely love you do not need you to remain exhausted in order to feel secure. They will not demand that you destroy your peace so they can maintain theirs. They will not require unlimited access to your time as proof of affection. They will not make you feel guilty every time you take care of a legitimate responsibility. They may appreciate everything you do for them, but they will also care about what all that giving is doing to you. That is the difference. So if someone becomes uncomfortable because you are finally protecting yourself, do not immediately attack them and do not immediately surrender either. Give them an opportunity to understand. Explain with kindness. Remain consistent. Then watch the pattern. Because sometimes people are not upset that you changed. They are upset because the version of you they could use so easily is no longer available. And when that happens, do not return to destroying yourself just to make them comfortable again. Keep your kindness, keep your humility, keep your generosity, but add wisdom to all three. The right people will not only love what you can do for them, they will also respect the boundaries that allow you to remain healthy enough to continue being the person Allah wants you to become. They praise what you give more than they value who you are. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes a person will praise you so much that you begin to believe the relationship must be sincere. They tell you, you are amazing, you are always there for me, nobody helps me the way you do, you have such a good heart. And naturally these words feel beautiful. But listen carefully to what they are actually praising. Are they praising your character, your honesty, your faith, your patience, your presence? Or are nearly all their compliments connected to what they receive from you? Sometimes somebody does not love the tree, they love the fruit. And the difference becomes clear when the tree enters a season where there is nothing left to pick. Perhaps today you have money, so everybody remembers how generous you are. Perhaps you have influence, so people are eager to stay close. Perhaps you have a position, a business, useful contacts, a car, knowledge, or some ability that makes life easier for others. And there is nothing wrong with people appreciating these blessings. Allah says, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِحْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Every blessing you have is from Allah. So when Allah gives you something useful, use it for goodness. Help people, be generous, open doors for others when you can. But never confuse somebody's excitement about your blessings with sincere attachment to your heart. Because sometimes what you own creates a crowd that your character did not create. And the crowd can become very quiet when circumstances change. Ask yourself something that may be uncomfortable. If I could no longer give this person what I give today, would they still want me in their life? If the money disappeared, would they still call? If you lost your position, would they still respect you? If you could no longer solve their problems, would they still enjoy sitting with you? If you stopped paying for everything, would they still invite you? If you became the person needing help instead of the person providing it, would their affection remain? You may not know the answer yet, and do not create artificial tests to find out. Do not pretend to be poor. Do not manipulate people. Life itself eventually reveals these things. Circumstances change, and when they do, character appears. There are people who treated someone like royalty when he had money, and when his business collapsed, they stopped answering his calls. There are people who were constantly surrounded when they held an important position, and the moment that position ended, they discovered that many of those friendships ended with it. There are people who always paid for gatherings. The moment they could no longer afford to do so, somehow the invitations became fewer. That is painful, but it also teaches something valuable. Not everyone standing near your blessings is standing near your heart. Some people are only standing near the shade. And once the shade disappears, they look for another tree. Do not become bitter when you discover this. Become wise, because bitterness will make you punish sincere people for what insincere people did. And that is not fair. Instead, learn to recognize the people who remain consistent. A sincere person may appreciate what you give, but their affection does not depend upon it. They might say, "You have helped me tremendously and I am grateful." But when you cannot help anymore, they do not disappear. Maybe instead they say, "You have carried me many times, let me carry you now." That is beautiful. Perhaps you once paid for everything, but now your circumstances are difficult, and they say, "Don't worry about it, today it is my turn." Perhaps you were the one giving advice for years, and now you are confused. They sit with you patiently instead of becoming disappointed that you are no longer the strong one. Perhaps you were always driving everyone around, and now your car is gone, they still come to see you. These small moments reveal enormous truths, because sincere relationships are not based upon permanent usefulness, they are based upon human value. And sometimes we contribute to the problem ourselves because we lead with what we can provide. Whenever we meet people, we want to impress them. We pay, we offer favors, we solve problems, we make ourselves extremely useful very quickly. Why? Perhaps because deep inside we are afraid that simply being ourselves will not be enough. So we try to become necessary, and being necessary can feel like being loved. But there is danger in that. If somebody's attachment to you begins because you solve everything, you may eventually feel obligated to keep solving everything so the attachment survives. You become afraid to lose your usefulness. You think, if I stop giving, maybe they will stop calling. If I stop doing favors, perhaps they will forget me. If I tell them I cannot afford this anymore, perhaps they will leave. And now generosity has become fear. You are no longer giving freely. You are paying an emotional price to keep people close. That is exhausting. You should never have to purchase sincere affection with constant sacrifice. Give because Allah has given you. Give because charity is beautiful. Give because helping people brings goodness. But do not give because you are terrified that without your gifts you will become invisible. Your worth existed before the favor. Your worth remains after the favor. And sometimes Allah allows a season of less to teach us this. Perhaps you lose money. Perhaps your schedule becomes tighter. Perhaps you no longer have the energy to be everybody's helper. Perhaps you must focus on your own household. Then some relationships begin changing. At first it hurts. You ask, why are they treating me differently? Maybe because for the first time the benefit has been removed and the relationship is being asked to stand on its own. If it stands, treasure it. If it collapses immediately, learn from it. But do not immediately conclude that every person who becomes distant was using you deliberately. Human relationships are complicated. People's lives change. Sometimes distance has innocent reasons. Again, we look at patterns, not one event. The danger comes when affection consistently rises and falls according to what you provide. When you give more, they become warmer. When you give less, they become colder. When you are useful, they praise you. When you need something, they vanish. That pattern deserves attention. Let me give you another sign. Watch how someone speaks about the people they no longer benefit from. Perhaps they were extremely close to someone when that person had money. Now the money is gone, and suddenly they speak about that person with contempt. Perhaps they loved being around someone powerful. The moment that person's position changed, they stopped respecting them. Be careful, because how someone treats people after the benefit disappears may show you how they could treat you when your benefit disappears. Character is seen in how we treat people from whom we need nothing. This is something we should examine in ourselves as well. Do we only call wealthy relatives? Do we become extra respectful around powerful people? Do we forget the quiet person who has nothing worldly to offer us? Do we value somebody more because of their profession, wealth, status, followers, connections, or influence? If so, this reminder is not only about identifying other people, it is about correcting ourselves. A person's value is not their usefulness to us. Some of the most beautiful people Allah places in your life may not be able to give you money or open any worldly door, but they make dua for you. They remind you of Allah. They are honest when others flatter you. They remain when you fail. They celebrate your success without jealousy. They sit beside you when you have nothing exciting to offer. Do not overlook these people because you are impressed by those who offer more worldly benefit. Sometimes the person with empty hands carries the most sincere heart. And there is another beautiful test of a relationship. Can you simply be together without exchanging anything? No favor, no money, no business, no problem. just conversation, just respect, just sincere companionship. If every interaction needs to contain a benefit, the relationship may be more transactional than you realize. Healthy relationships have room for simple presence. Someone sits with you because they enjoy who you are. Someone calls because they remembered you. Someone asks about your family without needing something afterward. Someone celebrates your improvement even when it brings them no personal advantage. These things cannot always be measured in money, but they are often worth far more. And perhaps some of you need to change the way you choose people. You have been impressed by people who need you intensely. When someone says, "I cannot survive without you," you feel important. But dependence is not always love. Sometimes mature love is quieter. It does not constantly demand. It does not always need emergency attention. It respects your responsibilities. It gives you room to breathe. It does not make you prove yourself every week. At first, that kind of relationship may feel less dramatic, but often it contains more peace, and peace is valuable. Do not confuse chaos with closeness. Do not confuse being constantly needed with being deeply valued. My beloved brothers and sisters, remember this near the end. The person who truly values you can appreciate your generosity without becoming addicted to your generosity. They will be grateful for what you provide, but they will not turn your giving into an obligation. And if one day your circumstances change, they will not suddenly look at you as though your value has disappeared, because they were never only looking at your hands, they were looking at your heart. So ask yourself today, who would I still be if I could no longer provide what people currently praise me for? And would I still believe I am worthy of love? You must, because your identity cannot be built entirely upon your usefulness to creation. What people receive from you may change. Your money may increase and decrease. Your strength may come and go. Your position may end. Your ability to solve problems may become limited. But none of those changes erase your humanity. Do good while Allah gives you the ability. Be generous while you have abundance. Share your blessings. But do not become addicted to the applause that sometimes comes with giving. Otherwise, you may begin giving more and more, not for goodness, but to hear people keep saying how much they need you. And when nobody needs you for a moment, your heart will collapse. Free yourself from that. You do not need to be useful every minute to have value. And the right people will remind you of that without even saying it. They will value your presence when you bring nothing. They will respect you when circumstances are difficult. They will still sit beside you when there is no benefit to collect. Because sincere affection says, "I am grateful for what you give, but that is not the reason I stay." And that is the difference between someone who loves the blessing around you and someone who genuinely values the person Allah created you to be. 6. They make you feel guilty whenever you choose yourself. My beloved brothers and sisters, this sixth sign is especially dangerous because after enough time, you may stop recognizing that you are being pressured at all. You simply begin feeling guilty whenever you do anything for yourself. You work hard for months and finally buy something you genuinely need. Instead of being happy for you, someone says, "So you had money for that, but when I asked you for help, you said you couldn't afford it." Immediately, your happiness disappears. You finally take one evening to rest after a difficult week. They call, you explain that you are exhausted, and they say, "Fine, I can see I am not important to you anymore." Now you cannot even rest peacefully. You decide to spend more time with your spouse, your children, your parents, or your responsibilities, and suddenly someone complains, "You have changed, you never have time for me anymore." And slowly, without realizing it, you begin living as though everybody else's needs are legitimate while yours require an apology. Listen carefully. There is a difference between selfishness and stewardship. Selfishness says only I matter. Wisdom says other people matter. But Allah has also entrusted me with responsibilities that I cannot neglect. Your family has rights. Your body has rights. Your work has responsibilities. Your worship requires time. Your mind needs moments of quiet. Your finances need discipline. You cannot pour every drop of yourself into other people's lives and then pretend nothing in your own life requires attention. Sometimes the person who loves what you give will make your healthy choices look like selfish choices because your balance reduces their access to you. When you begin saving money, they call you stingy. When you begin protecting your time, they call you distant. When you stop answering every crisis, they call you uncaring. When you finally say, I cannot carry this for you anymore, they remind you of how much they supposedly need you. And because you have a soft heart, those words affect you. You begin questioning yourself. Maybe I really am selfish. Maybe I should do more. Maybe a good Muslim would never refuse. Be careful with that thought. Being a good Muslim does not mean becoming available for every demand another human being places upon you. Sometimes people will even use your goodness against you. They know you care about pleasing Allah, so they make you feel that refusing them is somehow a failure of faith. You talk about helping people, but you won't help me. You say Muslims should be generous. You say family comes first. These words can become powerful tools of guilt when they are removed from balance and responsibility. Do not allow someone to use religious language to make every personal request sound like an obligation from Allah. Not every request is your duty. Not every emergency belongs to you. Not every disappointment means you have committed a wrong. And not every person who becomes upset with your boundary has been treated unjustly. Sometimes they are simply experiencing something they were never used to hearing from you. No. Perhaps for years you paid for everything. You became the person everyone expected to reach into their pocket first. Then your circumstances changed. You need to save. You have bills. You have people directly dependent upon you. So you say, I cannot pay this time. A person who values you may understand. But someone who has become attached primarily to your giving may start calculating your money for you. But you bought that last week. But you earn enough. But I know you have savings. Think about how strange that is. They are not asking whether you are okay. They are auditing your life to determine whether they are entitled to something from you. And because you are afraid of looking selfish, you give. Then perhaps you go home worried about your own expenses. That is not sustainable generosity. There is another form of guilt that has nothing to do with money. Some people believe that because you once supported them emotionally, you must now remain available whenever they need you. Morning, night, during work, during family time, while you are exhausted, while you are struggling yourself. They call, and if you cannot answer, they become angry. They send message after message. Where are you? I needed you. You are ignoring me. You don't care anymore. And now your entire day is controlled by somebody else's emotional state. Helping someone through pain is beautiful. Being there for a person during hardship is beautiful. But you cannot become another person's entire emotional support system while they refuse every healthier form of help. Sometimes loving them means encouraging them to speak with trustworthy family, appropriate professional support, or people better equipped to address what they are experiencing. You can support someone without becoming the only pillar holding up their entire life. Because what happens if you collapse? This is the question many generous people never ask. What happens when the helper needs help? What happens when the listener becomes exhausted? What happens when the person everybody depends upon wakes up one morning and realizes, I have nothing left? Some of you know this feeling. Your phone rings and instead of happiness, you feel anxiety. Not because you hate the person, because you already know they are about to take something from you emotionally that you do not have the strength to give. You look at their name on the screen and think, I cannot handle another problem tonight. Then guilt arrives immediately. What kind of person thinks like that? A tired person. That is all. You are tired. And tiredness is not hatred. Needing rest does not mean you stopped caring. Having limits does not mean your heart became hard. But if you ignore those limits long enough, something else can happen. Resentment begins growing. You continue saying yes outwardly while inwardly becoming angry. You give the money, but you resent them. You answer the phone, but you resent them. You do the favor, but for the next 3 days you keep thinking, why am I always the one? That is a warning. Sometimes the healthier choice is an honest no rather than a dishonest yes filled with resentment. You may say, I love you, but I don't have the emotional strength for this conversation tonight. I want to help, but I cannot afford this. I understand that you are struggling, but I cannot solve this problem for you. I need to spend this time with my family. There is no insult in those words. There is clarity, and clarity can protect relationships from resentment. Because when you constantly sacrifice silently, people may not even know what their requests are costing you. You expect them to notice, they do not. You become more frustrated. They continue asking. Eventually you explode. Then everybody is shocked. Instead of reaching that point, communicate earlier. But here is where the sixth sign becomes very revealing. When you communicate your need respectfully, what happens? Do they care? Suppose you say, I am really exhausted today. Do they answer, please rest? We can speak another time? Or do they say, so you are too tired for me? Those two responses come from very different places. Suppose you say, I need to focus on my family this weekend. Do they respect that? Or do they behave as though your family is competing with them for your attention? Suppose you say, I am trying to save money right now. Do they understand? Or do they begin making you ashamed of every legitimate thing you spend money on? Sometimes the clearest evidence that somebody values you is that they care about the cost of what they receive from you. Read that again in your heart. A sincere person does not only ask, can you help me? They may also ask, will helping me hurt you? That is consideration. Someone may desperately need a favor and still say, if this causes difficulty for you, please don't worry. Someone may need to talk and still say, are you in the right state to listen? Someone may appreciate your generosity and still tell you, you have already done enough. That person sees you. They are not simply consuming what you provide, but a person attached mainly to your usefulness may continue taking until you finally stop them. Because your exhaustion is not their concern as long as their need is being met. And this is where you need to examine your own heart as well. Why is it so difficult for you to say no? Perhaps the problem is not only them. Perhaps somewhere in your past you learned that being useful was how you received affection. When you helped, people praised you. When you achieved, people noticed you. When you solved problems, people appreciated you. So gradually you began believing, if I am useful, I am valuable. That belief can follow you into adulthood. You become the person who fixes everything. You volunteer before anyone asks. You give beyond your capacity. You never tell people when you are struggling. And secretly, you hope all this giving will guarantee that nobody leaves you. But then somebody does leave, and it breaks you because you think, after everything I did for them, how could they? Perhaps because what you gave was never meant to purchase permanence. Goodness is not a contract that forces another human being to stay. This is why your deepest intention must return to Allah. When you help someone, say within your heart, I am doing what is good because I want Allah to be pleased with me. Then if the person appreciates you, alhamdulillah. If they forget, your goodness was not wasted. If they cannot repay you, your intention was never dependent upon repayment. If they leave, you do not lose the reason you did the good deed. But when you give primarily to secure someone's affection, every act of generosity comes with an invisible expectation. I did this, therefore you must love me. I sacrificed this, therefore you must stay. I gave you everything, therefore you owe me loyalty. Then when people fail you, bitterness enters. So purify the intention. Give without purchasing love. And establish boundaries without feeling that boundaries make you unlovable. There is another thing you must understand. People who genuinely love you do not want your kindness to destroy you. Imagine you are exhausted and still trying to help. A sincere person may actually stop you. They may say, no, go home, rest. You have already done enough. Take care of your family. I will find another way. Why? Because they do not only care about receiving your help, they care about the person giving it. That is love with mercy. And perhaps this lesson is exposing something painful for you. Maybe you cannot remember the last time someone told you, you have done enough. Everyone keeps asking for more time, more money, more patience, more forgiveness, more understanding, more chances. And every time you reach your limit, they convince you that one more sacrifice will finally make everything right. Then another, then another. My beloved brothers and sisters, there must come a moment when you ask, is my constant giving actually producing goodness? If yes, continue where you reasonably can. But if your giving has become the reason somebody never learns responsibility, never respects boundaries, never seeks proper help, or never considers your needs, then perhaps the form of help must change. You do not necessarily need to abandon them. You may simply need to stop helping them in the same way. Instead of giving money repeatedly, help them make a plan. Instead of solving the problem, help them learn how to solve it. Instead of being available every night, encourage healthier support. Instead of accepting repeated disrespect, make reconciliation dependent upon respectful communication. That is still help. Sometimes it is better help. Because real love does not only ask, how can I make this person's discomfort disappear today? Real love asks, what will actually help this person become healthier tomorrow? And now turn the mirror toward yourself. Do you make people feel guilty when they cannot help you? When a friend says no, do you punish them with silence? When your sibling cannot lend you money, do you accuse them of being selfish? When someone needs rest, do you make their rest about your rejection? When somebody begins establishing healthy boundaries, do you say, you have changed? Perhaps this lesson is not exposing somebody around you. Perhaps it is exposing something within you. If so, be grateful. Change it. Become the person who can hear no without questioning somebody's love. Become the person who says, I understand. Become the person who notices when the helper is tired. Become the person who gives back. Become the person who does not need another human being to destroy themselves in order to prove they care. Because that is what sincere relationships need from all of us. And remember this near the end, my beloved brothers and sisters. Someone who loves you for who you are does not want you empty just so their hands can remain full. They will care about your limits. They will respect your responsibilities. They will understand that sometimes you need rest, sometimes you need space, sometimes you need to say no, and sometimes you are the one who needs support. So stop apologizing for every legitimate need. Stop believing you must exhaust yourself to remain lovable. Stop allowing guilt to become the price you pay for having boundaries. Remain generous, but do not become controlled by generosity. Remain available, but do not become permanently accessible. Remain compassionate, but remember that compassion also needs wisdom. Because someone who truly values your heart will not only be grateful for everything you pour into their life, they will notice when your cup is becoming empty, and sometimes instead of asking you for another drop, they will be the one who helps fill it again. 7. When you have nothing left to give, you finally see who truly values you. My beloved brothers and sisters, the 7th sign is often the clearest of all. There comes a time when life changes. The person who was always strong becomes tired. The person who always had money begins struggling. The one everyone called for advice suddenly has problems of their own. The one who carried everybody finally needs someone to carry them. And then something surprising happens. Some people disappear. When you were useful, they were close. When you could solve problems, they called constantly. When you were giving, they praised you. But when your hands became empty, their presence became empty too. That can hurt deeply. You may ask, did they ever really care about me? Do not rush to judge every heart. People have their own struggles. Sometimes distance happens for innocent reasons. But watch the pattern. Who still checks on you when you cannot offer anything? Who still speaks to you with the same respect when your circumstances change? Who remains when you are no longer the strongest person in the room? Those people are precious. Sometimes hardship does not only test you, it reveals people. It shows you who loved your presence and who loved your usefulness. And perhaps this is the lesson someone needs today. Being needed is not the same as being loved. A person may need your money. They may need your connections. They may need your advice. They may need your constant forgiveness. But that does not automatically mean they know your heart. So do not build your worth around how many people need you. Your value does not disappear when you cannot provide. You are still worthy of respect when you are tired. You are still worthy of care when you are struggling. You are still important when you have nothing impressive to offer anyone. And please, do not create fake tests for people. Do not pretend to have nothing just to see who stays. Simply stop overextending yourself. Give what you can sincerely give. Say no when you genuinely need to say no. Allow people to carry some of their own responsibilities. Then watch what remains naturally. The people who genuinely value you will still be there. Maybe there will be fewer people, but fewer sincere people are better than a crowd that only appears when your hands are full. And if someone disappears the moment the benefit disappears, do not respond with revenge. Do not expose them. Do not become bitter. Simply learn. Perhaps they were meant to have a smaller place in your life than the place you gave them. Keep your heart soft. Keep your generosity, but add wisdom. And remember this near the end, my beloved brothers and sisters. The right people will appreciate what you give but they will not require you to keep giving in order to remain worthy of their love. They will still recognize your heart when your hands are empty. That is when you finally understand the difference between someone who needed what you had and someone who truly valued who you are. My beloved brothers and sisters, perhaps this reminder has made you think of someone in your life. Someone who is warm when you are useful, someone who remembers you when they need something, someone who becomes cold when you say no, someone who knows what you can provide but rarely asks what you need, someone who becomes uncomfortable when you start protecting yourself, someone who praises your giving more than they value your presence, someone who makes you feel guilty whenever you choose your own responsibilities, and perhaps after all of that, someone who slowly disappears when your hands are empty. If that is your reality, do not leave this reminder with anger. Leave with clarity. The goal is not to hate people. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is not to stop helping. Keep your generosity, keep your compassion, keep your soft heart, but add wisdom to it. Because a soft heart without boundaries can become exhausted, and an exhausted heart can eventually become bitter. You do not need to become bitter. You need to become balanced. Give because it is good. Help because it is right. Stand beside people when they genuinely need you. But stop believing that you must constantly prove your worth by what you provide. You are more than your money, more than your favors, more than your contacts, more than your availability, more than your ability to solve problems. And the people who truly value you will understand that. They will not only love your full hands, they will still recognize your heart when those hands are empty. So if someone changes when your giving changes, learn from it. If someone respects your boundaries, appreciate it. If someone remains when you have little to offer, treasure them. And if you realize that you have also treated someone according to what they could give you, correct yourself. Call people when you need nothing. Ask how they are. Remember those who once helped you. Be present for the people who were present for you. Become the kind of person you wish others had been for you. And if today you feel tired because you have been giving too much for too long, do not feel guilty for slowing down. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to protect what Allah has entrusted to you. You are allowed to say no without hatred. And you are allowed to stop chasing relationships that only survive when you are constantly sacrificing yourself. If this reminder spoke to your heart, share it with someone who may be quietly giving too much and receiving too little. Subscribe if these reminders help you see your relationships with greater faith and wisdom. And in the comments write, I will stay kind, but I will also become wise. May Allah give us sincere hearts and sincere people. May Allah protect us from using others and from being used by others. May Allah teach us to give without losing ourselves, to love without becoming dependent on people's approval, and to recognize those who value our hearts more than anything they can receive from our hands. May Allah surround us with relationships that bring peace, honesty, mercy, and goodness into our lives. Ameen.